Okay, welcome back to the Mark David Show, where the truth is a conspiracy. Now, here is the article from the telegraph.co.uk. It says, prepare for riots and Euro collapse. Foreign Office warns British embassies in the Eurozone have been told to draw up plans to help British expats through the collapse of the single currency amid new fears for Italy and Spain. Okay. So, this is a article from zerohedge.com today. It says subordinated European bank debt face broad downgrades Moody's. So you can see this just chop, 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 chop. And of course we've been saying this on the Mark David Show for weeks now. We've been talking about it. It's an inevitability, and as we've discussed before, how it all ties into the American banks and so on and so forth. So what does that mean for the United States? Well, I think you have two camps in the United States right now. You have people who are starting to kind of go, okay, this is for real. This is 3 years into this now. This is for real. What's happening in Europe, what people like all over the news, especially alternative news, Mark David Show, so forth, what they're saying, Max Kaiser, or whatever, they're saying is this is for real. It's mathematically inevitable. The euro can't withstand itself. The IMF is not for real. Its only purpose is to seize assets for the super rich people who own the controlling shares of bank stock, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's the other camp of people. And that's the camp of people who are melting down and trying to hold on to what last vestige they have of the world they knew. And they'll try forever.
The evil people will come after this country.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
And you will know my name is the Lord!
Okay, so I love those little things. So as we talk about these banks being all interlocked and how a systematic collapse in euro would lead to the United States. So what's happening in the United States on the meltdown side of things? Here's an article from CNBC.com. It says, Tea Party activists challenge Occupy Wall Street by shopping boycott Black Friday. Okay, so they're saying, because as you know, the Occupy Wall Street would like to say, okay, we need to boycott this consumer holiday. And this was from the 23rd of November, day before Thanksgiving. Of course, the Tea Party, some of the Tea Party activists, supposedly, this is from CNBC, are saying, why it's un-American to not go shopping. Why would you boycott Black Friday? Well, interestingly enough, from CNN.com, this was from November 22nd, malls track shoppers' cell phones on Black Friday. Okay, well, there's one reason, Tea Partiers. There's one, assuming Tea Partiers are actually really behind this, but there's one. Okay, so then you get to Black Friday, right? And you have, you can please YouTube some of these videos of people just clamoring into stores. Cheap Chinese stuff made from slave labor, get out of my way, kind of stuff, you know. Well, this is from MSNBC.com, and I know you've heard this. It's shoppers unfazed as man dies at Target, and it says family and friends were stunned by the loss of a West Virginia man who died while shopping on Black Friday, as fellow bargain hunters reportedly walked around and even over the man's body. Like they say, you know, he had been suffering from heart problems, but it's like, okay, I'm not even going to go into the grandpa who got beat in the face. I'm not even going to go into that. Okay, I'm purposely avoiding the police state subject, kind of, sort of, right now, because I don't have to really report on that. It's kind of what's happening. I'm reporting on the mentality behind all this now. So again, going back to like this original, you know, this whole Tea Party activists to boycott the protesters by having this boycott Black Friday. It's like no matter how much denial you try to be in, no matter how hard you try to be in denial, it ain't gonna help. It ain't gonna help. I'm sorry. You can be in denial for all you want. It is not gonna help, because the reality of it is the solutions put on the table to keep the current system going are all paper solutions, and they don't work. They have no way of working. They're only buying time in order to snatch up resources. What's left of the resources. And the time is almost out. We're at a point now where basically it's almost to the chop phase. Okay. And as I've discussed many times in the past, this all goes to cheap energy, and this is really starting to pick up some press, some mainstream press here about cheap energy and how peak oil is real and how it plays into our financial system and how it plays into all this. Now, there was an interview from a guy named Max Kaiser did last week, a guy named Gregor McDonald. He has a website. He's out of Portland, Oregon, and he has a website called Gregor.us. And I think he does a really good job explaining kind of where the economy is in relation to the energy supply. And this is why the derivative IMF BS crap is not going to work. And no matter what you want to believe about spending money for Christmas is going to, is a patriotic way to save America. That's just lunacy. Okay, so here I'm going to play this. This again is Gregor McDonald talking about how the oil supply plays into the economy. Here we go.
To shed at this point. And so any leg lower in energy consumption is going to be correlated basically 1-to-1 with economic growth. And of course, this is the really tough spot that the developed world is in right now. It needs to find some way to grow to service the debt. And the barriers to growth are twofold. One, debt in the private sector remains way too high. And two, there just isn't an easy, cheap energy resource coming along to rescue us. And so you're in a very vulnerable type of threshold situation with what's occurred with debt in the developed world.
Right. So although Europe has been cutting back on their consumption of oil, the fact is that the oil industry over the past 25 years has had a reciprocal growth arrangement with the credit markets, and those banks in Europe are exposed to those credit markets in a big way. So even though they've cut back on oil, the collapse in the credit markets is pressuring the banks anyway. So
again, that's a Max Kaiser interview. You can get that on YouTube RT, and you can go to maxkaiser.com, and that's Gregor McDonald. And so again, it's mathematically completely tied into oil. It's completely tied into energy because, as we've discussed on this show many times, you have the petrodollar situation where oil-producing countries dominated by Saudi Arabia would invest a percentage of their oil profits in U.S. Treasury bonds held at the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, who then loan that out to banks. And so as the supply of energy increases and the use of energy contracts, it's tied to the credit market. It's tied to the economic system. It's tied to the ability for central banks to issue loans to banks, so on and so forth. So again, it's not like the IMF is a magical oil field, although they would like to gobble up the oil fields because the IMF is the same banks. These are all the same banks. This is really getting actually easier and easier and easier for every person to figure out. It's really simple. Now, so where is this all going? Well, again, you're going to see the plan is privatization of water supplies. And if you think this isn't going to happen in the United States, you're drunk. Maybe you're drunk on the tea that everybody's drinking at the tea party. I don't know. But you're drunk. You're crazy. Because, Goldman Sachs is actually installing people